In 1866, everyone was excited about one thing. There was a strange monster in the sea, people said. Different ships saw it at different times in the Atlantic and in the Pacific. It was very big, very long, and it moved very fast. It threw water up into the sky, too. Perhaps it was a whale? Of course, some people did not believe in the monster. But then, in 1867, some important ships had bad accidents. The worst of these accidents happened to a famous ship, the Scotia. After it hit something at sea, the Scotia had a hole in it of 2.5 meters. People said, "The monster did this. We must find it and kill it." I, Dr. Pierre Aronnax, work at the Museum of Natural History in Paris. But I was in the United States at the time on a visit. Because I write books about sea animals, lots of people asked me about the monster. Was it an animal, or perhaps a submarine? What could I say? I didn't know. Then a wonderful thing happened. The Americans wanted to send a ship, the Abraham Lincoln, after the monster, and they asked me, "Can you come with us?" I was happy to go, and Conseil, my good servant, went with me. When we left New York, thousands of people came and watched us. Captain Farragut of the Abraham Lincoln said,
$2,000 for the first man to see the monster. Good luck.
On the ship, there was a man from Canada, Ned Land. Ned was big and tall, and he threw the harpoon very well. He was a whaler, and he knew many exciting stories about the sea. He didn't believe in the monster.
No sea animal could make a hole in the Scotia,
he laughed.
She's a metal ship.
For weeks, we moved across the seas, and we watched day and night for the monster. But we did not see it. Captain Farragut said,
3 more days, and then we go home.
But 2 nights later, it happened. Ned Land cried,
"Look! Over there!"
We could see a strange light under the water. Something long and dark was there. It was the monster. It swam up to us, then stopped. The strange light came and went. 1 minute, it was on our left. The next minute, it was on our right. Is it playing with us? I thought. We waited, afraid. The monster made a lot of noise and threw water into the air. But it did not attack. At about 2 in the morning, we saw the strange light again, about 8 kilometers away. Ned took his harpoon in his hand, and we made ready to attack. Our ship moved quickly, but the monster went faster.
Don't lose it!
Cried Captain Farragut. We went nearly 500 kilometers that night. In the end, the monster stopped, and we saw the strange light under the sea in front of us. Quietly, our ship went nearer, and Ned stood ready. At 6 meters, he threw his harpoon. It hit the monster noisily. Suddenly, the sea in front of us was dark, and a big river of cold, black water came up over our ship. It threw me down into the sea. "Help!" I cried. I couldn't swim because there was water in my clothes. Conseil did his best to pull my head out of the water again and again. But soon he was tired, and we couldn't see the Abraham Lincoln. We're going to die, I thought. Then Conseil saw something in the water, and we swam over to it. It was Ned. He sat there on something big under the surface of the sea.
Why couldn't I kill the monster with my harpoon?
He cried.
Because it's a metal ship.
Conseil and I got out of the water and sat down next to Ned. He was right. We were on a long, dark metal ship. Our monster was a submarine. Suddenly, the submarine began to move along the surface of the sea. And up on its back, we went along with it. Hours later, when morning came, the submarine began to go down. Ned cried angrily,
Hey! Stop! Open up, I say!
At once, a door opened near our feet, and a man's head came up out of it. The man gave a cry and went away again. A few seconds later, 8 men came up out of the door. They said nothing, but took us quickly down into the ship and left us in the dark there. In the submarine, everything was quiet. Suddenly, a yellow light came on, and we could see. We were in a room with a table and 5 chairs. The door opened, and 2 men came in. The first man was short, with a white face. The second man was tall and dark. The tall man's dark eyes were very strange. They could see through me when he looked at me, I felt. The two men wore sea blue clothes. The taller man was the captain, I could see. He spoke to me in a strange language, and I couldn't understand him. I told him our story in French, and he listened to it, but his face did not change. Did he understand? Then Ned and Conseil spoke to him in English and German, but there was no answer. In the end, the two men in blue said nothing and left the room. Ned couldn't believe it.
I'm hungry!
He cried.
Are they going to help us or not?
Just then, a different man came into the room, with clothes for us to wear. He gave us something to eat, too. It was fish, I think, and it was good, but different from usual fish. After we finished eating, we slept. When we opened our eyes, many hours later, the air in the room was very bad. Then, suddenly, the submarine moved up, the doors opened, and at the same time, the air was good once more, and we could breathe again. I see, I thought. Whales come up when they want to breathe, and this submarine comes up for air too. Interesting. But Ned wasn't interested when I told him. Once more, he was hungry, thirsty, and angry. He hit the table with his hands.
These people are terrible,
he said.
We must get out of here.
We can't, Ned, I said. I was afraid. I remembered the captain's cold face. What did he want with us? Just then, the door opened, and the captain came in. Ned moved quickly to attack him, but the captain was not afraid.
Take it easy, Land.
He said.
And you, Doctor, listen to me.
Chapter 2. Captain Nemo and the Nautilus. The captain looked at us coldly.
Yes, I can understand your language very well,
he said.
I didn't answer you before because I wanted time to think. You attacked me, and you're in my hands now. You can never leave this ship, but you're free to stay and journey with me under the sea.
What are you saying? How can we be free down here? I cried. Are we never going to see our families or our countries again?
No.
Replied the captain.
Nobody up there must know about me and my ship. So you can't go back. And escape is out of the question. But give me your word on that, and you can move freely about this ship.
I can't give you my word,
said Ned angrily.
I'm not asking for your word, Land,
said the captain.
Dr. Aronnax, you're going to love living on my ship. I know all your books about the sea. They're very interesting. But you don't know everything. With me, you're going to learn many wonderful things. I'm Captain Nemo, and my ship is the Nautilus.
I was excited by the captain's words. I wanted to know more about this strange man. He was not very friendly, but he spoke truly. We were in his hands. What could we do? Ned and Conseil went to their room to eat. I went with Nemo to a room with a big table in it. There were good things to eat on that table, all from the sea. Nemo and I sat, ate, and talked.
We usually eat fish,
said Nemo.
but sometimes we hunt for bigger animals in my forests under the sea. Everything here comes from the sea, Dr. Aronnax. And one day, everything's going to go back there, too.
You love the sea, Captain? I said.
Yes,
Nemo cried. And for a minute, he looked happy.
men cannot fight under the sea. So here, I am free.
Suddenly, he went quiet, and his face changed. It was cold again.
Come, Dr. Aronnax. Let us visit the Nautilus.
First, Nemo showed me all his books.
I have 12,000 books here on the Nautilus.
He said.
I love reading, you see.
Next, we went into a big room with many famous pictures and beautiful shells in it. There was a big piano with a famous maker's name on it there, too. Tell me more about the Nautilus, Captain, I said. How does it work?
With seawater, we make electricity, and that gives us light. It helps us to breathe, and it helps the Nautilus to move, too.
Electricity? Wonderful! But the Nautilus goes very fast. How? I don't understand.
That doesn't matter now, Doctor. You have lots of time to understand these things, because you're never going to leave.
After that, Nemo took me to a window. Through it, we could see the Nautilus's boat ready in the water.
Look, Doctor.
He said.
We can go quickly up to the surface in that.
For a minute, I thought of Ned and his talk of escaping. But I could not leave just then. I was interested to learn more. We talked for hours. I asked Nemo about the hole in the Scotia.
We were 2 meters under the sea when it happened. The Scotia didn't see us. It was an accident.
And did you attack the Abraham Lincoln? I asked.
Yes, because the Abraham Lincoln attacked me first,
answered Nemo.
But no ship in the world is better than the Nautilus.
I believed him. The Nautilus was a truly wonderful ship. We began our journey under the seas on the 8th of November. The submarine had big windows, and with the help of electric light, we could watch all the sea animals through them. Later, when metal doors closed over the windows, we could not see out anymore. So we went back to our rooms. For many days, we did not see Captain Nemo. Then, one afternoon, I found a letter from him on my table. It said,
"Would you like to hunt with me tomorrow morning? I'm going to the underwater forests of Crespo Island."
Ned said,
It doesn't feel right to me. You can't hunt under the sea. I want to hunt whales from a ship on the surface with my harpoon.
He stayed behind on the Nautilus. Nemo, Conseil and I wore strange suits with boxes of air on our backs. We went down into the sea through a door under the Nautilus. The water was cold, but it did not matter. We walked over the seabed and we saw fish of all colors, beautiful flowers, and very tall trees. These were the forests of Crespo Island. Conseil was very happy, and he jumped slowly up and down in the water. After some hours, I felt tired, and I closed my eyes. When I opened them again, I saw a sea spider in front of me. What a monster! It stood more than a meter tall, and it looked at me hungrily. It began to come nearer to me on its long, thin legs. Suddenly, Captain Nemo came and hit the monster between the eyes. It ran away quickly. I was very careful after that. Nemo killed some sea animals to eat later, but Conseil and I killed nothing. Soon, it was time to go back to the Nautilus. Chapter 3. The Islanders Attack. After we left Crespo Island, the Islanders attack. After we left Crespo Island, the Nautilus journeyed on the surface of the sea. I saw 20 of Captain Nemo's men at work. They were from different countries, and they spoke in a strange language. Soon, we arrived at the Tuamotu Islands. They were coral islands, alive, and of many different colors. One day, the coral's going to make a new continent here, I said to Nemo.
The world doesn't need new continents,
said Nemo coldly.
it needs new men.
December the 25th came, and Ned wasn't happy. He thought about his country, Canada, and his family. He did not want to be at sea on Christmas Day. By the 1st of January, we were near New Guinea.
Happy New Year,
said Conseil. Captain Nemo wanted to go into the Indian Ocean through the Torres Strait. But the sea was bad, and there was lots of coral in front of us.
What's Nemo doing?
Cried Ned.
Does he want to kill us?
Just then, the Nautilus hit something and stopped.
I knew it!
Cried Ned. An accident, Captain? I asked.
It's nothing.
Nemo answered.
In 4 days, when the sea goes up more than usual at the end of the month, the Nautilus can be free of the coral. We must wait.
He said no more and left.
Now we can escape,
said Ned excitedly. No, we can't. Not in New Guinea, Ned, I said. We don't want to die far from home.
But we've got 4 days here. Let's visit the island. There are trees there, and animals perhaps. We can get some fruit and meat.
Ned's right.
Said Conseil.
Let's ask the captain.
Captain Nemo said
Yes.
so. The next day, the 3 of us went to the island on the Nautilus's boat. When we arrived, Ned said,
Give me 25 minutes, and you're going to have the best meat ever.
Ned soon found some fruit, but no animals. We ate the fruit and drank some island river water, and the time went by quickly. At 5 o'clock, we went back to the Nautilus. The next day, we got up early and went to the island again. Ned wanted to kill some birds, but they escaped.
I'm better with a harpoon!
he cried. Conseil did better, and soon killed 2 birds. We made a fire and ate them. They were very good. Finally, Ned killed some more island animals, and we ate those too. He and Conseil were very happy.
Why don't we sleep here tonight?
Said Conseil.
Why don't we sleep here every night?
Laughed Ned. Just then, I heard a noise. I looked up and saw 20 angry islanders not far away. We moved very quickly to our boat, but the islanders ran after us. There were more than 100 of them now. In 20 minutes, we were back on the Nautilus. I ran to speak to Captain Nemo. I found him at his piano. He played it beautifully and did not look up when I came into the room. "Captain," I cried, "there are hundreds of angry islanders after us. They want to get on the Nautilus." Nemo did not stop playing. He smiled and said,
Happily they can't, Doctor. Believe me. Now go to bed and sleep.
The next day, we could see 500 angry islanders on the island. We stayed on the Nautilus. Suddenly, Conseil gave a cry, and I looked up. There were now 20 or more long boats in the sea, not far from our ship. The islanders were ready to attack us. Once more, I ran to Nemo.
Dr. Aronnax,
He said,
don't be afraid. We can close the ship's doors. Nobody can get in then.
"But what happens when we open the doors to breathe?"
Then, Doctor, the islanders are free to come in, but not very far, and not for very long, believe me. Go to your room now. Tomorrow at 2:40 p.m., the Nautilus is going to be free of the coral. Our journey must go on.
I went to bed, but I did not sleep well. All night, the islanders walked up and down on the ship, and I could hear their cries. The next afternoon, at 2:35, Captain Nemo opened the doors of the Nautilus. "20 islanders were there, ready to come down into the ship. I was afraid. "Captain," I cried, "what can we do? They're going to kill us." Then I stopped suddenly. What a wonderful thing! The islanders could not come down into the ship. When they began to do it, they stopped, cried noisily, and ran away, afraid. Then I understood. The metal near the doors had electricity in it. When the men put their hands on it, it threw them up out of the ship. By now, it was 2:40, and suddenly the Nautilus moved. Nemo was right. It was the end of the month, and the sea was up now. We were free of the coral. On the 18th of January, the weather was very bad. Captain Nemo looked at something on the sea through his telescope. Suddenly, his face changed, and he spoke quickly to one of his men in their strange language. His face was dark and angry when he said to me,
Go to your room at once, Doctor. And no questions, please.
Ned and Conseil were there when I arrived. Without speaking, we ate dinner, and then we slept. Chapter 4. Fighting to live. At 2 o'clock the next day, the captain came and spoke to me.
Dr. Aronnax, please come. One of my men is ill.
The man on the bed in Nemo's room did not move. His head was red with blood. I looked at him carefully. He's dying, I said. How did this happen?
It was an accident,
said Nemo. No, I thought. It was in a fight. I looked up at the captain. He's very bad. I can't help him, I said, and I left the room. The next day, Nemo came to me again.
Doctor, would you and your friends like to visit the underwater world today?
Soon we were ready in our underwater suits. 10 of Captain Nemo's men came with us. 4 of them carried a long box. We were 300 meters under the sea, and we walked for 2 hours without speaking. Suddenly, Nemo and his men stopped. The men with the long box put it down. Then, all the men made a hole in the seabed, and they put the long box into it. Suddenly, I understood. This was an underwater cemetery. Back on the Nautilus, I spoke to Nemo. "So, Captain, your man died in the night?"
Yes, Dr. Aronnax.
he answered. But he said no more about it. Not long after that, we arrived in the Indian Ocean.
Let's escape to India.
Ned said. "No, Ned," I said. "Wait until we get to Europe." Ned said nothing, but he didn't look very happy at my words. On the 8th of February, Captain Nemo came again to see me.
Doctor, we're near the island of Sri Lanka, famous for its pearl fishing. The pearl fishers get the oysters from their beds under the water here. It isn't easy work, and those poor men don't usually live long. Would you like to visit the oyster beds?
Yes, Captain, I would.
You aren't afraid of sharks, then, Doctor? There are one or two in the Indian Ocean, you know.
The next day, we left the Nautilus near Mannar Island and took the boat to the oyster beds. These were only a meter under the sea. There were no pearl fishers there then, because it was February, and they usually worked in March. We put on our sea suits and got into the water. Nemo gave knives to Conseil and me, and Ned carried his harpoon. The oyster beds were wonderful. Ned began to put oysters into every pocket of his suit. Nemo took us to see a giant oyster. He opened the shell with his knife. I saw a giant pearl in it. I wanted to take the pearl out, but Nemo stopped me. I understood. It was Nemo's pearl, and one day he wanted to put it in that big room on the Nautilus with the beautiful shells and famous pictures. But not today. Soon after that, I saw a pearl fisher in the water. Poor man. He's working early in the year, I thought. The young man did not see us. Up and down he went in the water with oysters in his hands. I watched him with interest. Suddenly, he went up to the surface very fast. A big shark went after him and hit him with its tail. The man was down on the seabed now, and he didn't move. At once, the shark swam down to finish him. Just then, Captain Nemo went for the shark with his knife. The fight was fast and terrible. I could see only the white metal of Nemo's knife in the dark water. Ned threw his harpoon. hit the shark. And then helped Nemo up from the seabed. With Ned's harpoon in it, the shark soon died in a sea of blood. Nemo took the half-dead pearlfisher in his arms and swam up to the surface. We went after him. On his boat, the pearlfisher opened his eyes. Nemo gave him some beautiful pearls. The poor man could not believe his eyes. After that, we went back to our boat. "Why did you help that man, Captain?" I asked.
He lives in a poor country.
Answered Nemo.
I lived there too once, and I cannot forget that.
Some days later, the Nautilus was in the Red Sea, near the African coast. Nemo said,
Soon we're going to be in the Mediterranean.
"The Mediterranean?" I cried. "That cannot be."
Yes, Doctor. We're going through the Arabian Tunnel. It begins under Suez and finishes here in the Bay of Pelusium. It's not the first time for the Nautilus, believe me.
So the captain drove the Nautilus into a black tunnel under the water. And in 20 minutes, we came out near the coast of Egypt.
Doctor,
Said Ned quietly to me.
we're in the Mediterranean now. It's nearly time for our escape.
Yes, Ned, I answered. When the time is right, please tell me. I'm in your hands. But after that, the Nautilus stayed underwater and away from the coast. It moved quickly, and escape didn't look very easy anymore. On the 18th of February, we arrived at Gibraltar, and a short time later, we were out in the Atlantic Ocean. Ned came to my room.
Doctor,
He said,
we're moving up the coast of Portugal. We must escape at 9 o'clock tonight, when Nemo is sleeping. Conseil knows, and now you know too.
Chapter 5. Helping the Poor. I waited excitedly for our 9 o'clock escape. Time went by very slowly. There was no noise from Nemo's room, so I opened his door. Nobody was there. Where was the captain? Just then, the Nautilus stopped on the seabed, and Nemo came into the room.
Doctor, we're in Vigo Bay in the north of Spain. Look through the window.
With the help of the electric light, I could see old Spanish ships all over the seabed. Nemo's men swam in and out of them. Boxes of treasure soon stood open before me. And Nemo's men brought this treasure back to him. "You're rich, Captain," I said.
This isn't for me, Doctor.
Answered Nemo.
It's to help the poor people of the world.
The next morning, the 19th of February, I saw Ned. He was very angry.
Nemo went treasure hunting on the evening of our escape. I can't believe it. We must escape tomorrow,
he said, before he went to his room. But that day, the submarine left Europe. And soon, we were 150 leagues from the nearest coast. We could not escape easily now. Nemo came to see me. He wanted to take me underwater again. This time, without Ned or Conseil.
We're going on a long journey, Doctor,
he said. I put on my sea suit excitedly. The next day, the Nautilus went slowly south. Conseil and I watched through the window. In the end, the hills and ruins of the wonderful undersea city of Atlantis were far behind us. That night, the submarine stopped. I went to bed and slept. The next morning, we were on the surface, and I could hear men's feet on the metal over my head. But when I looked out of the window, everything was dark. Just then, the Nautilus's lights came on. There was stone to the left and right of us. Where were we? Nemo arrived and said,
This is the Nautilus's home, Doctor. The sea in a dead island volcano. We often stop here for coal.
Nemo's men took lots of coal onto the ship, and soon the Nautilus was ready to leave. Nemo now wanted to go to the South Pole. Days went by, and we did not see the captain. Escape looked out of the question. One day, Ned saw a giant whale out at sea.
Look!
He cried excitedly.
It's coming nearer, and I can't do a thing about it. Oh, why am I down here in this giant metal box? Wait a minute. There's more than one whale. There are 20!
Ned ran up to Captain Nemo.
Captain, I must hunt these whales. I want to feel the harpoon in my hand again.
Land.
Said the captain coldly.
These are Antarctic whales. Hunters are killing them all the time, and now you want to kill more. Why? We don't need the meat. No, you cannot hunt them.
Ned put his hands in his pockets and looked down at his feet angrily. Suddenly, Nemo looked again at the whales.
Ah, but wait. Look. Those animals over there are different. They are killer whales. Terrible animals. When they hunt, they kill everything. And they do that when they aren't hungry. You're going to see a fight after all, Mr. Land. And the Nautilus is the best hunter in the world.
What a fight! The Nautilus was a giant harpoon in Nemo's hands. Again and again, he threw the ship at the killer whales. And again, it cut the animals in two. When an animal escaped, the submarine went after it and killed it. The noise was terrible. When the ship came up after an hour, all the killer whales were nothing more than dead black and white bodies in the Red Sea near it. The Antarctic whales were free, and Captain Nemo, their helper, smiled at this.
I like hunting with my harpoon better, I think,
said Ned to me darkly.
When Captain Nemo attacks with the Nautilus, nothing can escape him.
Later that day, the Nautilus went south again. After a long journey across Antarctica, Captain Nemo went up and left his flag at the South Pole.
This is my continent now,
he said. It was the 21st of March, 1868. Chapter 6. Leaving the Nautilus. The Nautilus went north again, up the coast of South America. On the 20th of April, we arrived at the Bahamas. Ned, Conseil and I stood by the window. Suddenly, Ned said,
"Look at that!"
It was a giant squid, 8 meters long, with 8 arms, 2 angry eyes, and a big, hungry mouth. It began to attack the Nautilus. Soon, more giant squid came to help it. We could hear the noise of teeth on metal. Just then, the submarine stopped, and Nemo came into the room.
Giant squid are attacking us,
he said.
We must go out and fight them with axes.
And harpoons, Captain,
said Ned. It was a terrible fight. A squid took one of Nemo's men in its arms and ate him alive. Ned nearly died in a second squid's arms too. But the captain threw his axe axe into the monster's mouth before it could eat the Canadian. Then Ned quickly cut the animal's giant arms from him with his axe. After this, all the squid swam away. Nemo cried openly for the dead man. This time, he could not put him in the coral cemetery with his friends. For many days after that, the Nautilus was without its captain. We were near the coast of North America. There were a lot of boats in the water. And again, Ned, Conseil and I thought about escape. But the weather was very bad.
In a few days, we're going to be near my home country, Canada,
said Ned.
Please talk to the captain, Dr. Aronnax. Perhaps Nemo would like to stop the Nautilus somewhere near the Canadian coast. Perhaps this time we can leave the submarine freely and openly.
I went to speak to Nemo, but he was not happy to see me.
I'm working, Doctor. Can't you see? These papers tell the story of my life. I'm going to put them in a box before I die. And the last person alive on the Nautilus can throw the box into the sea. My story isn't going to die with me. It's going to live long after I go.
I understand, Captain, I said. But where is the sea going to take your box? Perhaps it's going to arrive in the wrong hands. Why don't you leave it now with friends in Canada? Give it to Ned Land, Conseil, and me. We can take it there for you.
Never!
Cried the captain.
I have no friends in the world up there, Doctor. And you, your servant, and the whaler are never going to leave the Nautilus.
Later, I told Ned about our meeting.
Well, now we know, Doctor. Bad weather or not, we must escape soon.
On the 18th of May, the sky went black, and there was a terrible storm. Captain Nemo stood for hours out in the cold rain. Perhaps he wanted to die out there, I thought. But at midnight, he came in, and the Nautilus went down under the sea. This time we went south, and on the 1st of June we arrived near the south coast of England. We were on the surface when I heard a noise. I could see white smoke a few kilometers away. Ned came up to me.
Look, Doctor. A ship. And that was a cannon. But are they our friends or not?
Ned was right. About 4 kilometers away, there was a warship. I could not see any flag on it, so I did not know its country. But that didn't matter. The Nautilus is nobody's friend, Ned. And that warship is attacking us.
And a good thing too, Doctor. I'm going to ask the men on it for help to escape when it comes nearer. You and Conseil must do the same.
No!
Nemo was suddenly there behind us. His face was white, and he was very angry.
I'm going to put a hole in that ship when it comes nearer, and you three can go down with it too. I hate them. Because of those people, I lost everything. My country, my wife, my children, my mother and father. I watched when they all died, and I could do nothing to help them. Was that right? No. So now, all those men on that ship must die.
But Captain, I cried, who are they?
You don't need to know that. Be quiet and go down to your rooms, I say.
We went down into the ship. We're going to escape after dark, I said. I don't want to stay with Captain Nemo any longer. But we could not escape that night, and the Nautilus went under the water just before the first light of day. The warship was very near us now, and the noise of her cannon came more often to our ears. Suddenly, the Nautilus began to go faster. It moved quickly nearer to the warship. Then, with a noise of metal on metal, the submarine hit the ship and went through it faster than a knife through paper. I ran to look out of the window. Before my eyes, the warship went down quickly into the sea, and all its men went with it. Captain Nemo watched too. His eyes were dark and angry. When everything finished, he went to his room. I could see him through the open door. He sat down on his bed and began to cry. Over his head, I saw a picture of a beautiful woman with 2 young children. After that terrible day, we stayed on the Nautilus for 3 more weeks. We did not see Nemo or his men. One morning, Ned said to me quietly,
We're going to escape tonight. We're near Norway, and there's land about 30 kilometers away. The sea's stormy, but it's now or never.
Yes, Ned. We live or die tonight. You, Conseil, and I. I looked for the last time at all the wonderful things on Captain Nemo's ship. In the evening, I put on my sea suit and carefully put all my papers in my pocket. I did not want to lose the story of our months on the submarine. I wanted to sleep a little, but I felt excited and couldn't. Suddenly, I heard Captain Nemo's piano. Just then, Nemo gave a terrible cry and said,
No more! No more!
What was in that strange man's head? Soon after that, I went quietly out to the boat. Ned and Conseil were there before me, and the three of us got in the little boat at once. Suddenly, we heard noises. Someone cried,
Maelstrom! Maelstrom!
and a metal door closed. I felt very afraid. Near the coast of Norway, the waters are terrible. No boat ever escapes from the maelstrom. Suddenly, the cold sea came up and over us. The big submarine fought the fast waters for some time, but it was no good. With a terrible noise, our little boat suddenly broke away from the Nautilus. We went up, and the submarine went down. And then my head hit something, and all the world went black. When I opened my eyes, I was in the home of a Lofoten islander. These men fish in all weathers in the seas near Norway. My friends Ned Land and Conseil were with me, and I took them happily in my arms. They laughed to see me alive and well again. Now we must wait for a ship before we can go back to France. The maelstrom took my papers from my pocket. But I am writing our story again, and I have lots of questions to answer. What happened to Captain Nemo and the Nautilus in the end? Did they escape from the maelstrom? Who was the captain? Where was he from? And which country killed his family? Who knows the answers to these questions? Not me. But I know one thing. Ned, Conseil, and I went 20,000 leagues under the sea on Captain Nemo's Nautilus in under 10 months. It's a truly wonderful story. The only thing is, who in the world